In August 2017, as tensions mounted between the Trump administration and North Korea, the New York Times ran a story on whether the United States could legally preemptively attack North Korea. In reviewing the legal issues, the New York Times described the Caroline incident of 1837, declaring that it established the conditions constituting legitimate self-defense in anticipation of an attack. And in so doing, it cited specifically the words of then U.S. Secretary of State Daniel Webster. That is, a necessity of self-defense that is instant, overwhelming, and leaving no choice of means and no moment for deliberation. Webster's words stem from correspondence in April 1841 with the British ambassador to Washington. These phrases were recycled later in 1842 as part of further negotiations between the United States and Great Britain. This diplomatic dispute stemmed from events that had taken place on the 29th of December, 1837. Late that night, a small band of Canadian militia, commanded by a British naval officer, sank the American steamboat Caroline on the American side of the Niagara River, dividing today's Ontario from New York State. That raid sparked a diplomatic crisis between the United States and Britain, one in which the legality of armed force, and specifically its use in self-defense, was heatedly debated. That controversy fashioned language, most notably that associated with Webster, that countries deploy to this day in deciding when they may use force in self-defense. In Webster's famous formula are the core ingredients of the modern concept of self-defense. And broken down, they are imminence, necessity, and proportionality. And this formula has mattered. After aggressive war was outlawed, most dramatically in the United Nations Charter in 1945, self-defense evolved as the most consequential remaining source of legal justification for one state's use of hard power against the government or territory of another. So, how did this come about? In the last few moments of this presentation, let me tell you the story of the Caroline. In December of 1837, the American Republic was just over a half-century old, and today's Canada did not exist. The United States was not yet a continental state, and British North America was a clustering of somewhat marginal colonies located along the northeastern frontier of the United States. Two of these colonial possessions comprised the Canadas, Upper Canada and Lower Canada. Then, in early December 1837, the Canadas were briefly embroiled in minor rebellions against British administration, reflecting a growing disenchantment with political disenfranchisement in colonies run entirely by a limited elite. The minor rebellion in Upper Canada was quickly suppressed, and its leader, William Lyon Mackenzie, fled from Upper Canada to Buffalo, New York. There, at the largest public meeting held in that city to date, he rallied support and indeed military equipment from U.S. supporters. So armed and in league with his American supporters, Mackenzie invaded and occupied Navy Island, a mile-long island lying on the Canadian side of the Niagara River. Soon his followers joined the original company on Navy Island, and by December of 1837, most of these followers were sympathetic Americans who transported weapons openly from New York State armories. And from Navy Island, Mackenzie's forces bombarded the mainland of Canada near the little town of Chippewa, just outside of modern Niagara Falls, Ontario. The situation then stalemated until the 29th of December. But on that date, events unfolded quickly. That day, the Canadians sighted a steamboat traveling from the New York side of the river to Navy Island, ferrying men and cannon. That vessel was the Caroline. And so the British and Canadian militia confronted a dilemma. They feared that the presence of this steamboat would shift the strategic balance. And while prudence may still have dictated a wait-and-see strategy, given the American origin of the Caroline and concerns about provoking the American government, by this point the commanders at Chippewa were impatient with the seeming inability or unwillingness of that American government to intervene and stymie American support for the insurgency. And so, near midnight, on the 29th of December, a British naval officer and emigrant to Canada, Andrew Drew, embarked with 7 small boats, each with 7 or 8 men, and headed towards the Caroline, berthed on the New York side of the river. What followed was a melee involving cutlasses and firearms. One of the Caroline's crew was killed, the only fatality in the raid, and several of the Canadian raiders were wounded. Nevertheless, overcoming the resistance, the Canadians cut the boat away from its anchorage and set it alight in 4 spots. By 3 a.m., the ship was ablaze, and parts of it tumbled over Niagara Falls. The American response to this raid was vociferous, but neither side, British or American, wished to descend into open warfare. Instead, the two sides negotiated a diplomatic settlement packaged into a broader understanding in the 1842 Webster-Ashburton Treaty. And so the Caroline became a mere footnote in North American history, one of the last military incidents along a border that would become among the most peaceable in the world. But the matter took 5, often fraught and animated years of diplomacy, and along the way, the two governments articulated views, especially those of Daniel Webster, that continue to animate international relations to this day. And it is topics like when can force be lawfully used in international law by one state against another state, or indeed a non-state actor, including increasingly through cyber means, that feature in many of our international law courses at the University of Ottawa. Thank you for your interest in this presentation and in our law school.